And we are live. I am
Yes!
here with Josh Talge from Titleist. Are you actually at the office?
No, not as much as you would know.
Your cabinets look similar to when I've talked to you while you're in your office.
Yes, eerily so. Eerily so. Wanted to find a location in my house where I could be kid-free and managed to do that.
That is good. The family's good. Everything else is going well?
Yes, as much as, and I'm sure many of the people watching this are dealing with the same thing, but when your new normal is also being tech support and teacher for young grade school kids, it adds a layer of stress into your life that's new.
I noticed you were still able to put on the sweater vest for us today.
Always branding. Got to be branding.
Well, we're going to have a kind of a three-way chat here, so I wanted you to introduce who's joining us because it's really somebody interesting for our audience that's going to watch this and be able to ask questions, because we can dive into the weeds here. We're looking at a chance to talk about from product creation all the way up through bringing product to market with you here as well. So why don't you introduce our third member of this tripod here today?
Yeah, our special guest is Marni Ines, who is our director of irons development. And Marni is an incredible guy. His nickname is Iron Man. I wish that was his Twitter handle, but sadly, I'm sure that was marveled in some way. But Marni is an unbelievable resource here at Titleist, and somebody that we're really thrilled to be able to make sure that we can get out in front of your listeners, because nobody knows more about iron development than Marni.
And Marni, I'm going to have you turn the volume down a little bit on your computer because it's picking it up both ways. But welcome, and we have a whole bunch of people following along and listening. My first question is right behind us here, and I'll splash it up because we're going to get this question a lot. Is you guys have a lot of irons. Here's the T series right here. Here's another T series. If we're talking about irons, my first question, I got this one a lot, is how many is too many, or are there never enough? Because I think Titleist, if you bring in the concept irons, which isn't really fair, you guys have a lot of irons to fit a large amount of people. As a designer, you could probably design 50 sets for a release if they gave you enough time. So how do you go about that process of figuring out how many is the right amount?
Well, there's a few different things, right? And part of it comes from Josh's end of things through marketing and sales. Part of it comes through tour. So we're certainly got a great focus on tour and products that are played by the best players in the world. So, and I'd like to say that, that comes as a high priority for us in terms of trying to understand what the performance of an iron specifically really entails. And by getting products in the hands of the best players in the world and having them available for testing really affords us to be able to dig into that more than you could if you didn't have access to that as well. And so I think right now we're up to 7 or 8 models if you're including the utility irons. It's even more than that if you're including the concept irons as well. So there's a lot of factors that go into that between performance, what certain players are looking for, and what our marketing and sales are willing to put out as well. So
with Josh there, I know you could probably put out 20. He'd be for that. And you guys launched with 3 to 5. The T series, we'll focus on that for right now. And the T series had the 1, 2, and 3. I was one of those people who was so for this name change to the T series. I thought it was absolutely the best move possible. Then you came back later on and added to that. How is that decision done? Is it more of a, hey, listen, we have a gap that we really need to hit? Or is it, hey, I've created something that really needs to hit the marketplace. Can you help us with this?
Well, maybe I'll take the first part of that, Marni. The big thing that we're always doing is listening, right? We're listening to not only your groups, but we listen to the fitting community. And Marni already talked about, we listen to the better player community, certainly the PGA Tour pros and others. And one of the things we consistently were hearing from our fitting groups, as well as some of our on-course partners and some of our better off-course partners, was, hey, I love T100, 200, and 300. Incredible lineup. But if there was, 1 or 2 other things I'd like is, boy, could you give me a T100 that's got a little bit more juice? I know it's a tour iron. It's not designed to go very far. or to go, it's not a distance iron, but could you give me one that gives me a little bit more ball speed? And then we heard quite a bit of, hey, T300, incredible, top selling iron we've got, but there are still players who look at that and say, boy, it's kind of small. And for some golfers, size equals forgiveness in their mind. And they were thinking, is there something
we can do here? Are you going to say size matters?
No.
You wanted to. You wanted to. I saw it.
Just dancing around that. But wanted to make sure that there were opportunities for other golfers who might be challenged a little bit from a swing speed perspective to have something like a T400 that could help them get that speed and distance they need to help them play a little better golf. So it was more of a complement. 100, 200, and 300 are our main horses. T100S and T400 are complementary pieces that help us round out the category.
Now, I am all about marketing. I love it. I love golf marketing. I think good golf marketing is fantastic. Bad golf marketing is funny. One of the questions, and I've received it probably 63 times in the last 24 hours about T400s, is, come on, guys, we're talking about loft jacking. I hate that term. Now, and I'm going to go on a step further and say I've been with R&D with a company where they showed me the effects of an iron built like this when you don't reduce loft and you feel like you're going to hit yourself in the bill of the hat because it goes straight up. It's scary. What do you say to that argument, though, when it comes up? And I know you have better answers than me because I have to type it out on a forum and deal, loft lowering does exist. We know it exists. We know not all companies are doing it strictly combined with innovation, but what do you say to that as the person who designs the clubs?
Well, if you look at the package that we have here, okay, so I'm first and foremost going to say people want distance, right? There's nothing wrong with wanting distance. So we want to deliver it to them, and we want to deliver it to them in a package that is as forgiving as possible. So if you look at our execution in this category, it's a large size club head. There's a very wide sole, and it's got a lot of tungsten in it. And that's for a reason. And where the tungsten is placed in especially the long and mid irons in that set is placed there for a reason as well. The configurations of the shafts that we choose to go along with it also are there to help the player get the most playable trajectory out of these irons as possible, coupled with, guess what? A lot of distance. So if you look at that, we have a really low or really far back CG. We got shafts that are probably a little bit softer in the tip than the rest of our line. And all this is designed to give them a trajectory that will work for them. And that's not to say that everybody's going to play the whole set from 5 through every wedge, right? Their set may start at a 6 iron, but guess what? That set works pretty darn well for that person.
Josh, have you hit them? I know you like to go out in the mornings. Well, not currently, but go out in the mornings and test products. Have you hit them?
Yeah, well, now my testing is happening in my backyard. I've got a net and a hitting mat set up. I'm sure my neighbors love it. Nothing like the fresh sound of irons ringing early in the morning. But yeah, the T400s, one of the things that I think is really interesting is Marni and team really partner with Dr. Chuck Golden, who heads up our testing group. And they really look for, when they explain it to us, they kind of call it a 3D approach. So they want to make sure we get distance, but also dispersion and then descent angle. How is that ball coming out of the sky? And if you have those 3Ds, you have a really good product. And so we're designing those irons to make sure that they go exceptionally high, right? So the loft jacking thing is one of those that, and we hear about it all the time. And I even joke with our sales guys, I'm like, listen, when you present this thing, you're going to get some pros that are going to say, yeah, well, that's 7 irons, my old 5 iron. You're like, great, go get that old 5 iron. Let's have you get on Launch Monitor. Let's see which one of these products, your old 5 iron or this new T400 7 iron, let's see which goes further, which is more consistent, your dispersion close to your target, and which one drops out of the sky at a higher angle. It gives you a better angle of descent, which is going to give you your green stopping power. And I think we're going to win on all 3 of those. And so really that's what we're looking for. I will say T400 it's a blast. I much prefer, Marni and team have helped us all see the beauty of a tour plate iron. And so when you can look at a T100S, with a nice thin top line, not much offset, but know that you can get great turf interaction, you can get speed, and you get quite a bit of forgiveness out of the tungsten that Marni and team have been able to place both toe and heel. I would take that one every day.
So we got a whole bunch of questions coming in on the right-hand side of my screen. I'm going to splash them over to your screen. You guys enter them. The first one's kind of funny because it's for Josh.
Well, I
in his backyard, I would say yes.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. From the 8 feet that I have from where I hit to into the net, everything looks great. I was joking with my buddies that I don't know what my ball flight's going to be coming out of this, but my swing's going to be really grooved. So it's going to be what I'm sticking with for a while.
This was an interesting question because you and I had a conversation, I think 3 years ago, and we talked about how higher handicappers kind of skipped Titleist, and sometimes the words game improvement weren't really used, things like that, despite you having some pretty forgiving options. Are you seeing a larger amount of high handicaps coming in?
A little bit, but primarily what we're seeing is actually more people who would always consider themselves like pretty hardcore golfers or serious golfers, dedicated golfers, whatever term you want to use. And they're starting to think about Titleist in the iron space more than they did before, because they realize that not only do we make an exceptionally high-performing iron that looks great and feels great, but it is unbelievably forgiving. And we've got that forgiveness in every type of size. So I think we make the most forgiving tour iron. I think we make the most forgiving players distance iron, and we definitely make the most forgiving game improvement iron. And I think that's what we're starting to see, is that players are turning to that across all the groups, whether it be better player or not. We're starting to get that reputation, which is great. That's what Marni and team have worked so hard to build for us.
And this question is really good for Marni because we've talked about, the consistency kind of aspect. What do you do to during the creation outside of, your CAD design of being exact and everything? How do you go through and get this consistency so perfect?
Well, okay, consistency is a big deal for irons, and it's a really high priority for us in the Titleist iron category. And really for us, the tungsten that we put in these irons to really pump up the MOI is coupled with the face technology. So when you look at it, if you have a face technology and you're creating COR in an iron to get more distance, which essentially, gives you a lot more distance off the center, you're going to want to increase the forgiveness of that club in terms of MOI as much as possible to make it as consistent as possible across that face technology. Because if you don't, then the head is going to pitch and twist open or shut, and you're not going to get as much energy put into the face to then give you that consistent distance. So for us, it's really about using large amounts of that high density tungsten and placing it as far out in the heel toe as possible to give us that high MOI coupled with a face technology that gives you COR.
I'm going to double down on that question for a second. And if I'm holding up a driver head, which is the only club I don't have right next to me, you can usually say, there you go, Josh has it. At the top part of the driver, you're going to have higher launch, lower speed, lower spin. Bottom half, you're going to have lower speed or higher speed, lower spin, lower launch. In the irons, it's not necessarily the same because the balance point is different. So do you ever have to go through and remove speed from the middle to make sure you are more consistent across the entire face?
Not exactly. So like if you look at a technology like max impact, so some people might use words like that, but we wouldn't necessarily use words like that because what we're trying to do is we're trying to maximize distance at the same time across the face. So really at center face, what we're trying to do is we're trying to limit it to the COR limit for the USGA, right? Because if we didn't have the max impact technology there, you could potentially be
I think Josh has products and breakaways to show or something like that.
Of course, yeah.
Perfect.
Yeah. Dude, my home office is really stacked with toys.
So what max impact allows us to do is to take the face even thinner than if we did not have it, hold that center face at the COR limit for the USGA, and get greater ball speed off the heel and toe when coupled with the tungsten.
That makes perfect sense. And Josh, don't put that away yet because this question is perfect for it.
Oh yeah.
Someone skipped our video that we did on these ones. Jay, come on, you got to watch our videos.
Yeah.
So the sundial, I assume, is what the person's referring to.
And it does tell the time, but it's always 10:30.
Yeah.
It's funny though, because that's not the first time I've heard that, But kudos to our designers who have put together the look of this club, because we love it, and people have different descriptions for it, but it is really what I would call the back support of the iron.
Yeah, I'll get that in there for you, Marni, so you can.
Oh yeah. So if you look at that, you can see the core. We have the polymer core there backed up against the face, and it's sandwiched in between the quote unquote sundial and the face. That brace, that's what I would really call it, brace or support, is really what's providing us that transfer of energy from the face through to the back, and then allows it to return back through that polymer core as well. So, and that does a couple of things. Like I said, it helps us limit that face at center to the COR limit, or near the COR limit. Yep. And also it helps us with damping and improving feel of the iron, because as we all know, as you make the face of an iron thinner and thinner, you get more sound and you change the feel. And this is just another way for us to also tune the sound at the same time.
Another question comes up, which is another one that we get quite a bit on your irons, is turf interaction. And obviously it is probably the least overthought section of people when they decide irons is sole size. They think about bounce. They don't really know how bounce is measured. Now it can be a little tricked. They camber different areas. What do you do with the turf interaction that's a little different, that would you say is a separator for Titleist?
Well, for us, I mean, we really get a lot of feedback from the best players in the world, and we do that on all products. So it's really interesting to get their feedback, along with, of course, player testing with the product category. So by testing with the tour players, though, you can really understand what the sole is doing. I mean, you'd be amazed at what a guy like Rafa Cabrera can tell you in terms of what the difference in the sole is doing for him, right? I mean, they're very specific about what they're describing, about how it feels going through the ground, for what I would consider very, very small changes that we can make, say, in one machine prototype to another. I mean, when you're machining prototypes of soles, you can make very small changes within 5-10 thousandths of an inch, and then hear these guys talk about what that does, and that gives us the feedback and the confidence to make the designs that we do. So, like for instance, in the T100, we made some changes to the leading edge and the pre-wear there, and what we would call it now is it's a more blended pre-wear than it was before. So that means that the transition between that front kind of change in bounce angle and the rest of the sole is smoother than it was before. Versus before, pre-wears traditionally have been more abrupt, almost like a grind, like someone taking the front end of the club and just kind of flatten it out locally. And it was surprising to see how players, could give us the feedback that when you smooth that out just a touch, I mean, you can still see there's a transition, that they all preferred it. And then, of course, well, if the preference is there, you put it in the product.
This one is for Josh because it's so perfect based on your background.
Man, I would kill to get Terry to join us. I don't even know if he plays golf. I do know obviously about his football background and other things, but we'll see. We'll see.
And based on the movie, whatever it was with Adam Sandler, he likes cheeseburgers. So
yeah, no, he would be a great addition. High energy guy. I'm sure we could get him fit into a set of clubs that would help his game. It'd be fun to have.
Speaking of that and a good transition, we always ask, what's in the bag? We'll start with Marni. What is in your bag right now? Or are you not allowed to say because it's like years in advance?
Well, we'll start with the irons. So I have our Concept CPO2 irons, which I don't know if you...
Oh, you must know someone.
I do enjoy using those irons because it is a fun iron to show people and to show off the technology that we create in not only the Concept line, but throughout the rest of our irons. And, you know, it's a very small muscle back looking head.
Yeah.
And every time I tell somebody, you know, they put it down, they look at it, they're like, whoa. I'm like, I don't know. As soon as they start saying, I don't know, I know they're going to say, I don't know if I can hit that. I say, I'll always cut them off and say, just hit it. And then they put it down, and the disconnect between what they see in terms of trajectory and what they put down in front of them as far as this little tiny muscly looking head, it's always a fun thing to watch people hit that iron and realize the performance from it. But from there, I've got a 510 3-iron. So I basically have 4 through pitching wedge in the Concept irons. I have a couple of our new Vokey wedges, a 53 and a 59. And
how obscure.
Yeah, well, I don't know. I've just come to use those and have very specific, you know, shots and distances that I hit.
Absolutely.
And then I have of all things, a 13.5 degree wood in my bag because I am not the longest of hitters, of course. And
this is the internet. You could have said you blasted it.
And of course, that club comes out when the ball's on the ground and I need to hit it as far as I can hit it. And then lastly, my driver is actually a TS4, which has, of all things in it, an X-Flex shaft in it, which, you know, again,
coming full circle on that internet thing.
Not a normal fit that you would see for someone with my club head speed, but when they fit me into it, it was the best. So there you go. It was really straight, and I could hit it just as far as any other one.
I'd like to point out to everybody watching this that the director of iron development goes long irons throughout the bag, including utility iron, before he skips to a high or to a very strong lofted fairway. Only when he finally needed it would he go that direction, which is also good because it's the exact opposite of our Metalwoods team. Tom Bennett, who heads up our team that does hybrids,
he got a 9-wood in the bag.
Hybrids and fairways is just got full head covers, total bouquet.
I do tell my team, it's like, hey, if you if you can't hit the long iron in your set, you need to design a better one. Okay, so if we don't have a product that fits there, then we need to go back to the drawing board and find one that works.
JT, what's in your bag now?
I've got 3 SM8 wedges. Love them. They're very new, so they barely have a break-in period to them. I'm very excited to get back out on real turf and be able to enjoy those. Aaron Dill, Jeremy Stone, and Bob Vokey did an amazing job. Product is incredible. And then I go pitching wedge through 7-iron T100, and then another 7-iron 6.5-iron in T200. From a gapping perspective, that worked out really well for me. I had 13-yard gaps all the way through going that direction. So yes, I have 2 7-irons in my bag, but they're different. Well, on average, right? So an average of hit 15 balls and see where it goes. And then unlike Marni, I actually jump into. I'm now playing a 21 degree fairway wood, kind of like a 7-wood almost. And then jump from that to a 16.5 degree. And then my driver is a TS2 10.5.
I hear that bag and I think, man, he's getting older.
Yeah, I moved to the 21 degree fairway because I was playing down in Pinehurst in November, and I wasn't quite getting the descent angle I wanted on my hybrid. We've got great, TS2 hybrid. I hit it well, Wasn't struggling with the lefts like some guys sometimes will get, but I didn't get the scent angle that I wanted. And I knew playing firm, fast conditions down the Pinehurst area were going to require a lot of, kind of 225, 230 yard shots that you can stop on those types of turtley greens. And that's really where the higher lofted fairway worked out great. And it just stayed in my bag.
Both, we got multiple questions where they wanted to hear your putters.
I did forget my 18 degree. So I do have an 18 degree fairway as well. And I do have as far as my putter goes, I have a Circle T Scotty Cameron.
Not surprising.
Look at this guy.
It's a
JT's going off the rack.
It's a fastback with a I forgot how to describe it.
It would have been super awkward if one of you guys got a different brand putter. So
I've been testing out during this interim period where I get to do a lot of putting in my home office with the new Scotty Cameron Phantom X 12.5, and it's incredible how stable it is. I feel like you can hit it all over the club face and you get this terrific roll. So I think that's going to be sticking to my bag once I get to go venture back out on golf courses.
So I'm putting this question up, and I wouldn't be doing my job if I didn't ask it. It's, if you look at the landscape of golf and release cycles, Titleist is pretty much clockwork. And it wouldn't be a secret to say, hey, guess what? They probably have a new product coming in a few months later this year, tour release in the middle of the summer, things like that. We're in a very different year right now. And the best way to say it is nobody's asking for your release date currently, but can you see an evolution for this year, and how do we combat it with retail stores still being closed and filled with inventory?
Well, I mean, no one's going to launch a new product when you can't sell it somewhere, right? So we would follow that.
Well, you would think so, but yesterday that actually changed. But that's for a different podcast video here.
Yeah, I mean, we're going to do what we need to do to be smart, understanding what's going on in the retail space, but at the same time also being true to what we like to do to validate our products the right way, bring them to market in the right way. I see one of the questions is, how does it affect future club releases? Marni and team actually took us through on a Microsoft Teams call a week ago as we were looking at future iron development. We're pretty far along on what's the next generation of irons. And it's exciting times for us to always be focused on how do we make things better and how do we help golfers play their best golf. So we're going to keep pushing on that envelope, because I know that's the one thing that all golfers are going to still crave is they want to go out and play, they want to play their best, and they want to get better. Even if they know that they're not going to necessarily be getting younger, they can still play better and still play and enjoy this great game that we love.
When you're talking about future releases and, retail and you being cognizant of everything, design doesn't stop. And Marni isn't not working. Obviously he's here, so we know he's working. How far can you push it with the office being closed?
You'd be surprised.
From a design standpoint, Marni can speak that we can keep on trucking. We've got amazing things we can do.
I mean, as our group was one of the earliest to say, you know what, we can see what's happening here. Let's move the team to remote working situation in terms of design goes. And that goes for, our team in terms of design development, that goes for the research team in terms of the analysis side of things. So we have, I want to say 95% of the tools we need to do our job at our disposal. And, that makes us, that other 5% slows us down a little bit, but it by no means limits what we can do. So we can still, we can proceed.
When we're talking about the current state, it's very hard because none of us know what the current state, what the future state holds. Currently, and if you don't want to answer this, I respect that. Do you have plans to change your release date as of today?
I don't think that's one that we could really comment on from today. I mean, we're still, because there's so many unknowns, right?
Yeah, and I agree. It's
time
hard
we launched,
to do that because it's a moving target.
Well, exactly. You know, I don't think that we ever had going into what this coronavirus thing we're in right now. I never listed out things that needed to be true for us to launch effectively. Number one, golf course is open. Number two, golf shop's open. That never made the list before, right? Because it was just an assumed, well, those are always open,
right?
And so we're in such a weird world at the moment that there's whatever comment I would make on there, odds of it being wrong are significantly better than it being right.
Understandable. Well, we want to thank you guys for joining. This has been a lot of fun. We have to do it again. Our audience has enjoyed it based on the comments that we've seen. We have lots of questions. If you have continued questions on the products, post them in our forum thread. I will make sure they get to the guys and get answers for you because I see them rolling in right now. We have an email chain where I can send it over. We'll get you your answers. They're not going to come from me. Nobody really wants to hear that. I'll make sure that JT and Marni get the answers you want. And we want to thank you guys for joining in and hope we can do it again.
Yeah, we'd love to do it again. We really appreciate everybody, tuning in and sending us questions. This is fun for us. It's a way to stay very connected, and we love it, right? So anytime we get a chance to do it, we're up for it.
Yeah, please do. I love answering the questions that people have about our products. So it just comes with the territory. Why not?